Hey yo, what a div, y'all. Let's get right into it. What a fucking day. You know how crazy it is to have my power come back on 10 minutes before patch notes goes live and just be scrambling to catch up and then get this monstrosity of a patch notes dropped on us? That's right, baby. It's time. It's finally time to start talking about PoE. There's a lot of these videos. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know which order they're gonna come out in. I just know that that I got a lot to talk about. In this one, we're going to be talking about the loot changes in particular. I'm going to start with the talk about just generally the quant stuff that changed because I think that's worth talking about. But I don't want to dig too far into that because honestly, I'm going to be honest, that doesn't really affect me. I don't really fuck with that part of the game. I know how it'll affect me, but it's not like in the same way. I feel like there are better people better qualified to talk about that topic more so than I am. Then I want to talk a little bit more about the stuff they talked about with like chisels and horizons and scarabs and map drop adjustments because I think that'll actually play a lot closer to things that I'll actually see and feel while we play. Uh, and what a day, you know? It's been a beautiful day. We got chilled in Q&A hell, or what you guys did. I was stuck with no power for a couple of days, but you know, it's all the same. Before I get into it, hey, look, you like the video, these type of videos, liking the video lets me know that. You can subscribe to the channel to see more, as well as, you know, turn the notification bell on to know when I'm posting. Now, let's talk a little bit, starting again, quant. They talked a little bit in the patch notes about monster quant and rarity, as well as player quant, and we'll pop those up on the screen so you can read them in full if you haven't read them. I will not be reading those in full verbatim, but I will read a couple of things that I think are very important to talk about, which we'll start with just the first sentence of this like type of section, which is the monster section. The way that the quantity and rarity of items drops from extra content has been changed. Generally, we have added item quantity or rarity bonuses to a number of mechanics such as essence or delirium. On top of that, we have added drops back to some leagues where it wasn't present before, such as ultimatum. In general, the philosophy here is that if you're killing monsters, you get loot, and if they are more difficult, you should get more and better loot. And this is substantial, actually. And it's going to tie nicely into this other line that we're going to talk about really quickly as well, and then we're going to tie it all together, which is that item quantity bonuses on all character items have been removed, although this will not affect items in standard. What this means is now player quant is dead in trade leagues, like in league play, which is insane to think about. I know they talked about doing this for PoE 2. I didn't think we were going to get it in PoE 1 so quickly, and that's a part of why I want to talk about it, but it's more because those two excerpts that I just read you about the fact that item quant on characters is now gone, as well as the changes to drops, including returning drops to places that haven't had them in a while, is very interesting in the sense to me that I feel like the game is healing a little bit. Only a little bit, though, because I don't know how much I agree with the timing of this choice, but I do think it is a popular choice. I think that a lot of players, honestly, me included, are going to pretty heavily benefit from these type of changes. Just generally speaking, I think that it will feel better for me, right? For players like me, for players like you, presumably, if you're not a Magic Finder, that these changes happen. You know, it's going to feel nice popping an ultimatum and having loot drop on the floor again. From a different excerpt earlier that I'll talk about in more detail about how breach monsters are going to be able to drop maps more reliably and whatnot, right? Like there's all of these changes that have been made over the years to how the game drops loot because of Magic Find characters, and then how their magic finding stacked with monster quant rarity, which they had a little bit of a note in here about that as well, but it's not necessary for this talking piece, which is just the idea that Magic Find ruined a lot of the regular aspects of the game. And I think that this change is a necessary evil in order to undo that damage. But it's not because of what you might think. It's not because, oh my god, the magic finders are just taking all of the loot. I don't actually give a shit about the magic finders. I actually feel for them. I generally tend to feel for people when they lose their preferred way of playing or scaling the game. And I think this is no exception to me. I feel like this is wild and out of left field, just completely removing an avenue as far as how they scaled up their enjoyment of the game. But I will say it's been a long time coming, and there's an excerpt in here that I'm going to paraphrase and then talk a little bit more, in which it said that the idea was that Magic Find was supposed to be another way to scale your character once your damage and survivability reached the level that you wanted. And this held true back in the day when rare quant gear was a thing, right? If you ever looked at a character in standard and seen like quant on a regular resist ring, you're like, what the fuck? What is that item? Or like quant on a helmet, right? Like quant used to be damn near everywhere back then. And back when that was the way that you were able to attain quant as well, it was more reasonable to say that quant was an access for all characters to access to increase their value overall, right? But when quant got removed from all of those slots, as well as, IIQ support got taken out of league play as well, once you got to that point, quant is now just a unique only stat, which really whittled itself down into a specific set of archetypes due to what items did and didn't have quant, right? Greed's Embrace was the only quant chest. Venter's Gamble and the Pariah are the only quant rings. Amulets, you had a couple options: Aesthetic and Bisco's Collar, as well as a Spine Fused Talisman or a Eyes of the Great Wolf. You had a couple options for quant in the next slot. Belt, Bisco's, or you corrupted a high level belt into quant, right? Gloves, Sedimas, boots, Goldworms. You see what I'm getting at here? Shield, Centauri's Answer. Weapon was only Windripper. That is almost every quant item I can think of off the top of my head, right? And when you only have those items to choose from for stacking Magic Find, you end up in a very specific archetype and set of builds or ways that a build has to be able to function in order to take advantage of it, which is why you then either saw specifically only like bow characters with Windripper doing it, or characters specifically in parties to abuse the existence of a support doing it, because the gear was so specific that you didn't really have many other options to work with there, right? It was no longer an axis by which you can scale your character as much as it was just a build archetype. But when that build archetype makes more money than the rest of the game altogether, it feels awful for everyone involved, because something has to give. Either the mechanics have to get nerfed, or the gear has to get nerfed, or the playstyle has to get nerfed. And here we are after many years of having our backs broken as regular players who don't Magic Find. Like, this is me speaking from my experience personally, right? Like, as a person who does not enjoy Magic Finding, I've watched mechanic after mechanic after mechanic get gutted and fucked because of Magic Find enjoyers out there. And it's kind of cathartic to see that in theory, this will be less of a problem, because quantity is a bad stat. It just is. That said, again, feels bad that an entire archetype of builds is just getting removed from the game, but I think a lot of us are going to feel a lot more positively about this than most. So I guess, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or some bullshit like that. Unlucky. We go next. The bigger thing about this, though, is that as a result of this, like mentioned earlier, Ultimatum's getting its drops back, because Ultimatum didn't have any drops because of what Magic Find group play was doing in Ultimatum League to abuse the ridiculous drops from that mechanic. Or, when Delirium and Alva got gutted to shit because of what group play, party Magic Finding was doing to those mechanics, and the ridiculous amount of loot that was showing up on the floor, right? Or the whack-a-mole that we kind of played with things this league, trying to deal with the fact that Magic Finding like T17s was ridiculous, right? All over and over, we've seen things get like hack and slashed out because of Magic Find, and it's great to see that loot's finally coming back to us. Ultimatum getting loot, I'm very happy for it. Maps being able to drop from league content is so nice. Like, league content monsters being able to drop maps again is going to be so incredible. I think we're going to see some really cool stuff out of this, just in terms of like new profit margins and strategies that we've done before, or new avenues by which we can progress our atlases more efficiently, because you'll actually be able to get other resources other than just focusing on our map sustain. There's value in that, right? Now, the connected change that I do need to explain a little bit, well, explain, air quote, mostly just talk about, because I noticed when I was reading it that the wording was not the clearest wording of all time. And some friends asked about it, so I figured I should put it in here as well. Is monsters killed from all leagues and additional content can now drop additional maps, yada yada, right? That part we talked about. Now, we go up a second, up a step on that page, you'll see scarabs, chisels, and horizon orbs now follow the same drop rules as maps. As they are consumed proportionally to endgame maps, they do not drop more with additional party members present, nor do they scale with bonuses to item quant on the player. Not that you can get it anywhere outside of standard. The intention is to keep the number of these items drop, yada yada. So, what does that mean? They follow the same drop rules as maps. Well, a couple things, right? They still will drop from all the things that they dropped from previously, because now maps drop from all of those things, right? And more importantly, they no longer scale with quant, at least on the player or in the party. Which is actually very interesting that this confirms that like player and like we knew this, but like player and map and party quant didn't affect map drops. It was also a thing from before. So we know that the map, that now it's just going to be like map quant that affects our scarab shells and horizon orb drops, as well as the fact that they can drop from every monster, same as they already were able to. The question becomes, will they inherit the drop rate penalty that maps will incur from some of these regular monsters? Because I think that's going to be the determining factor on whether or not scarabs, chills, and horizon orbs feel more or less common. And I wish they would have given us more detail on this, just to like give us expectations, especially because the idea is that they said, you know, to keep these the number of these items dropping always proportional to the number of map items dropping. And the thing is that they don't particularly feel proportional at the moment, especially scarabs. So I'm a little concerned about this. I also put in my notes from reading this section of the patch notes that I really hope that the scarab chain, that these like changes here in the scarab section does come with a little bit of a like revamp to the rarity of some of these scarabs, because especially for making you drop less scarabs, there's a number of scarabs that are not strong enough to not be upped in drop rate. But like, look, whatever. That's a lot of deep thinking that we're not going to have answers to till we're like live on the patch next week, right? Anyways, that wraps it up for me in here. Thank you for listening. Drop some thoughts in the comments if you feel like I missed anything important about this stuff, right? There's a lot. Don't tell me you didn't cover this thing from like a different topic or whatever. I have no idea how many videos I have to make right now. We're just kind of fucking rolling because I feel like a hamster on a tread on a fucking wheel, but the wheel is running faster than me. It's crazy right now. But you know, thank you for watching the video. Like it if you liked it, you know, comment to let me know if you have some extra thoughts about these quant and drop changes that they're making. You know, subscribe to the channel with the notification bell on if you want to see more of when I post, especially over the next little bit as we like I get out of the like analytical section and into the build talking section of this like pre-league cycle, as well as, you know, in the description there's a Twitch and a Discord link. Right in the Discord, we're building a community in there, fairly active. Definitely come by and chat it up with us. And on Twitch, I have been live more recently outside of this week because of the fucking storm that knocked me out. But once I get everything back in order, we'll be back to going live at some sort of regular intervals, especially like, you know, just to chat it up with y'all as we get ready to roll into the league. Anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.